This program is intended for informational purposes only and does not contain medical advice. As always, please contact your physician or qualified healthcare provider with any questions regarding a medical condition.
Women need to use their choice more and stop using their desperation, and they'd be in a different situation. I'm impactful, I'm influential, I'm changing lives, and I'm able to lead without force. Many women are choosing men based on their promises and not based on their results. Leadership is, I'm gonna show you my results. And if you feel like my results are something that's conducive to where you want to be, you are more than welcome to join. People don't believe in entitlement, but I do believe that when we were born, we are entitled to one thing. That is at least a great quality of life. I'm here to change the trajectory of an entire race of people.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hot and Bothered with Melyssa Ford. And I'm sitting with none other than Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, renowned psychology expert and life coach, author, and motivational speaker. Boy, have I been excited to talk to you. Thank you for joining me.
I'm so happy to be here. Of course. We were talking off air just earlier.
We were talking off air.
We were going off.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I can't wait to just, y'all know how I do, give you some gems. I'm not here to be liked or disliked. I'm just here to be able to provide tools that can help folks just get to a place of mental health and live a better quality of life. And so let's do it.
So first of all, I want to tell everybody I'm in LA right now because I accepted my Gracie Award. So I found this beautiful studio. It is amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was, it was amazing to see so many incredible, accomplished women in that room. And I had a thought to myself about claiming titles and how difficult it is for us and how self-assured you come off, which is one of my favorite things about you. You just seem immovable. It doesn't matter what anybody has to say about you. It doesn't matter public criticism. You come across like you know exactly who you are, exactly what you want to say. That level of confidence for women is really difficult to grab hold of and maintain. And in that room, I'm sitting there with my Gracie Award, looking around and thinking, did they really meant to give me an award?
They did.
And then I had to check myself and check that imposter syndrome that likes to come along and kick my ass every, couple of weeks. So I really wanted to know, where did this level of confidence come from? Because I mean, you're young. So most women, it takes them well into their, late 30s, 40s to feel settled like that.
Yeah. No, it comes from, great parenting. To be honest, I was gifted 4 parents. My parents had me as teenagers, so my grandparents stepped in and raised me. But all 4 of them have done a magnificent job at really teeing me up and really making sure that, my backbone was very vertical and never making me feel like my trauma was too much, my pain was too deep, or I was too big, right? Or even that I was too small in moments. And so with that kind of parenting, especially, I'm like still to this day at my later mature age, my mother and my father's golden child. I was still the prize to my grandparents. And they did a good job of just making sure it was always, all right, Cheyenne, you're spicy, there goes that mouth again, but we're gonna make space for that mouth. We're gonna make space for that strength. We're gonna make space for your bigness. You don't have to shrink. We've created a fish tank for you, but we know at some point this fish tank is gonna break purposely, and we are waiting for you to hit the ocean. And we're supporting you in that. And so I think it's important that parents allow their kids to respectfully be who they are, respectfully stand in that voice while you guide, but you don't self-project onto them the things that either you want or you wanted or that you didn't have. And what's really important, a woman is what her daddy makes her, and a man is what his mama makes him.
I was about to ask you about that. I was about to ask you, since you have 2 fathers, your grandfather and your biological father, and you said that they're both wonderful. I'm interested to know, what were some of the things that they taught you? We were having a conversation earlier about hypervigilance and how girls are taught hypervigilance about our safety from an extraordinarily young age, and how that manifests in certain behaviors and certain likes and preferences. So I'm interested to know what these two men taught you as you were growing up.
Yeah. My father would always say my whole life, he would say, "You are the Kobe Bryant of the women. You are." LeBron James went in back then, okay? LJ, so it was Kobe, but you're the Kobe Bryant of the women. Like, you're the Michael Jordan of the women. And it wasn't that he was making me arrogant or narcissistic. It was, as a man, he was shaping my value. As a man, he was shaping my perception and my lens as to how I would view and see myself. And again, the reason why I say woman is what her daddy makes her is because, especially when it comes to relationships, is because how he shapes me to view myself, how I see him as a man viewing me, is going to be the expectation, the bar, and the standard that I expect my man to view me in. Now, of course, fathers who are over the top like my dad was, he doted on me, he just ate, slept, and shit me. I was a daddy's girl, and he had me at 16. So we grew up together. I was his daughter, his road dog, all that. But there was such an intense spoiling and daddy's girl that I end up with a very strong fairy tale ideology of how high a man should be treating. And my standards were so high that my dad even had to tell me, like, listen, some of your standards are unrealistic. So daddy wants you happy, but daddy doesn't want you alone. And so as a man, it's my job to teach you that in order for you to be the bride, not always the bridesmaid, that there are some things that just come with men being a man.
Like what?
And so some of those things he would say are, because I'm very dominant, and I had to grow into my alpha, and alpha is my hybridness. I had to grow into my hybridness, which is being an alpha submissive. I was always growing up more of an alpha, more dominant, more dogmatic, and he had to teach me that in that space of being always alpha, you're going to get exhausted. In that space of being always dominating and domineering, that comes off as controlling. And when you meet the right man who you can trust, you have to learn to nest. And when he said nest, he not only gave me verbally a great example, but he gave me as a father a great example, meaning I was able to nest in my father. I didn't have reservations. I didn't have to investigate my father to see if he was coming, if he was telling the truth, if he was going to violate me. No, I fully leaned into him because he protected, provided, and there was provision that I knew from a little girl. All I knew was that. So when he covered me, when he did it through him doing it from being a father, from the experience, not just only verbalizing it, that taught me that, wait a minute, you want the fairy tale of how daddy treats you, but you also have to be able to give men the treatment you give daddy, which is the trust, which is the love, which is the nurturing, which is nesting in him, which is allowing him to lead you. Because my father would lead me and I wouldn't question it. I may have an opinion about it, but I wasn't pushing it back against him with resistance that made him feel like, wait a minute, I can't lead this woman in my natural organic space, in my natural form of leading as a man, because it does look different. And many women are choosing men based on their promises and not based on their results. And so they're saying this man has promised to lead me, but this man's results before me show that he can only lead into a ditch.
Is there any point in which believing in a man's promise is okay, in terms of maybe in terms of the age that you're at? Because at this point, you need to come as ready as minute rice. At this point in my life, but maybe when I was in my 20s, a man who said, who exhibited promise would be a little bit more acceptable because, well, I'm not my fully formed self. I've still got, work to do. It's, professionally, personally, maturing and that sort of thing. Do you feel like there's like an expiration date?
See, that's where fatherless little girls have a deficit at. And this is why fathers are so important, because a father's wise counsel tells his young daughter, that man is full of promises. That's called potential. And potential leaves you with potential. What has that man done? I don't care if this man is 23 or 24. What has he done in his schooling? What has he done in high school? What has he done in college? What has he done in his household at home with his parents? What has he done in his prior relationships? Not just romantically, but friendships. How does he show up character-wise? There's so many other ways that we can read people and use our discernment to have a positive judgment on who they possibly can be with us, that it doesn't matter the age. A promise is just that. It's a promise until it's actualized. And women get so caught up again on the D's and the P's, the dick and the promises, that they become eclipsed to the reality of what this man cannot do. And then to the defense, to the men's defense, then women want to gaslight men and say, but you're not this, you're not that, you're not that. But you chose this person who never showed you the results that he could do this. He almost promised you the things that he would like to do. Like to do isn't good enough. You're standing on sand. This man never guaranteed a foundation of concrete. So that's your fault. Because where you stand is called your free will. That man didn't have you stand there and say, listen, this is concrete and I'm gonna force you to believe it. No, it goes back to the power of choice. And women need to use their choice more and stop using their desperation. And they'd be in a different situation.
That is a word, choice and not desperation. Let me ask you something. To me, you came out of left field. Like one day you were just there. I had never heard of you, never seen you. I think that the first time that I saw you was when you made the appearance on Cam Newton's show. And that shit went viral. I was like, oh, I like her. I like her a lot. You just had this sense of fearlessness and honesty, but there was instant backlash from men. Instant. And obviously they use the whole, how can she claim to be a relationship expert or a life coach in any way, shape, or form? She's never been married, she's single, she has no kids, it's the blind leading the dumb, et cetera, et cetera. Do you find that, because now you're everywhere, do you find that the tide has turned in terms of the response that you get from men? Have they started to actually listen to the words coming out of your mouth?
So I get a lot of response from men that say, thank you for identifying what broken homes and broken families are. I'm a 23-year-old man. I had 3 kids by 3 different women, never planned it to be this way, but knew nothing else. When I heard you speak, on Cam Newton's podcast, it brought me awareness. It changed my life, and I want to be different. I have been eating in restaurants and men walk over like, yo, look, you're doc? Yeah, I am. I just did 15 years in prison. And prior to that, I did create broken houses and broken homes, and I did have a lot of dysfunctions that you talk about. I listened to you while I was in prison, and you changed my life. So I get, from my experience, more of that. But I want to say, to your point of the men or the group of people who are bringing the backlash, I don't give a fuck. I want you to listen. And if you disliking me or backlashing or criticizing is gonna get you a tool that'll change your life and help you do better and have a better quality of life, then damn it, dislike me even more. Because if that brings you to listen more, that is my purpose. I'm not here for you to like me. I'm here to interrupt dysfunctional cycles that continue to marginalize our community, continue to break up the things that we need to stop. And if y'all don't wanna hear it, guess what? Then flip the fucking channel. But when it comes to me and what I stand on, I advocate for is a better community, human rights, but even more than that, a better Black community. And so I say this, I don't go out of my way to speak and say things for likability, because what
it doesn't
I've learned
seem so
is,
at all.
And what I've learned is, though, Melyssa, once we convince the people that don't like us to like us, we have to spend that entire relationship continuously convincing them to like us over and over again.
Amen and hallelujah.
Because whatever they didn't like in us is in us. And it's gonna show up from time to time. So if anyone thinks that it's healthy to continuously convince somebody over and over again to like the things about you that God has gracefully blessed you with, then you have a bigger internal struggle called self-hate and identity crisis than you even know you do. Because standing on who you are is not arrogance. It's respect for being an image of God who has created you perfectly in his image and equipped you with everything that you need. And your sheep will know your voice. Even if they're wolf in sheep clothing, the wolf still has to hear the shepherd speak. It doesn't make a difference.
What's your relationship with God and an organized religion?
My relationship with God is everything. Organized religion, I'm not really
How do you
involved in.
yeah.
I'm non-denominational. I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
And so, which is very organized.
Oh, trust me, I know.
Very stand, kneel, sit. Very First Communion, 10 Commandments. I went to catechism, which is Catholic school. So I grew up in that. And then as I became a teenager, I transitioned over to non-denominational Christian church, where I got more involved in the principles of the Bible. And that has become, always has been, but has become more of like my direct foundation. So my relationship with God is everything. Everything that I do is after prayer and supplication of saying, God, is this what you will have me do? Is this what you will have me say? Or will you have me to shut up and listen? And I do exactly that. The reason why I'm able to stand so vertical, you know, in addition to my parents being great parents, is that when you have God's understanding, which, you know, surpasses, you know, God's peace, which surpasses all understanding, you become vertical in who you are. And when you know you are standing in your purpose and a commitment to yourself and God, you don't waver. You are a sturdy oak. And people can do one or two things. They either become very admired about it and very in awe about it and very in seeing themselves in you, because there's parts of them that have that, but maybe want to expand more on that. Or you really highlight the shortcomings in them and you really highlight where they need to do the work. And for the people who you're highlighting, this is where you need to do the work, but they're not ready to do the work, guess what? You get pushback, you get resistance. But wherever the resistance is, the pain is.
Yes.
Wherever the pain is where the work needs to be done. And so again, for the folks who are pushing back, for me in the field that I'm in as a psychology expert, I'm reading that. I'm coding that as that's where the pain is. That's where the resistance is. I see you now. Thanks for letting me see you.
Is that what you always wanted to be? You know, before you got here, I was having a conversation with everybody behind the scenes, and we were talking about the massive left turn that I made, you know, in terms of what I was really impassioned to do when I was younger. I wanted to be a forensic psychologist. I wanted to be a profiler for the FBI and, you know, just study serial killers and shit like that. And then I decided to take a massive left turn, ended up in entertainment and became famous, and you know,
and here we are.
And here we are. So I'm just wondering if your desire to, you know, be a psychology expert and just kind of absorb yourself in the field of psychology, life coaching, if that's always been your desire, your goal, your passion.
Yeah. So I've always done the psychoanalyst piece naturally. Like as a little girl, I've always ripped things apart and ripped the parts apart and rip the moving parts apart and figure them out. And my mom would say, Cheyenne, you've already ripped it to pieces. How many more pieces are you gonna rip it to? The conversation is over. And it was never over for me because I was analyzing the why, the deeper, the root, the cause.
Was there any book,
understand?
Was there any books that you were reading at that time that just that inspired the desire to, you know, dissect things?
Besides prayer and me always questioning God, why? I was analyzing even everything he did. That I've stopped because I trust fully. But it was just innate in me to understand behaviors. When you come from adversity, like I did, and you come from a traumatic youth or an environment that can be hostile or unsafe at times, you learn how to analyze every fucking thing in that room. You learn how to read people's behaviors and code. What are they gonna do next? What are they doing right now? What is their intent? And what do I have to do to make sure that I move the right way so that I'm safe in this environment? When you come from that, and that's why the Bible says it is good for me that I was afflicted, because it breeds character. It builds a backbone. It gives you muscle that other people don't have to flex or pull on. And so coming from that environment, which would have looked like a deficit for a lot of people, was the biggest blessing for me because I naturally learned how to organize a room for my safety. I naturally learned how to code and read people and be able to literally code people through their nonverbal communication and say, this is what they're thinking and this is gonna be the end result. And as a young girl, I learned that I was spot on. Like my theories that I was creating based on literally coding patterns and behaviors, I'm like, yo, I'm reading this shit. And I would do it naturally in bars or, you know, if we're at the gas station and somebody had a conversation, I would get to penetrating and analyzing them. And I'd have friends like, girl, we got to go. Like, we're on vacation or we're just on our way, you know, to get our nails done. We got to go. And I'd be so deeply invested in it, Melyssa, that by the time I got to college and I thought, let me go to law school because I have this strong personality. I can create a narrative and I figure I can get a jury to see my story, my narrative.
I could definitely see you being a lawyer.
Right? And like, besides, you know, the judge being like, yo, order in the court, shut up. I was like, you know what? When I said law school, God took me on my own personal journey. And when he allowed me to see the broken pieces in me, and he gave me his principles that allowed me to take those brokenness and make peace from it, I encountered such a love of God's peace that I thought, you know what, there's no way that I can't give this to every single person I come in contact with. And I made a commitment to myself and to God in that moment. I said, I promise that I will commit to us to give this to every single person. You bring me the people, I'll deliver our principles. And from that day, I knew then I was going to get my master's in marriage, family, child therapy. I went on to get my doctorate in counseling psychology. And it just didn't stop. And I remember being in school, Melyssa, in my doctorate program, and my professor being like, everyone raise their hand who's going to get their license. And I didn't raise my hand. Everyone else did. And they used to call me Albert Einstein because he was like, you're a genius. And so he's like, oh, Einstein, you're not going to go get your license? I'm like, no. And he goes, why? I said, because you only need a license to bill insurance. And I'm not here to just bill insurance. I'm here to change the trajectory of an entire race of people. And he said, okay.
People went looking for that accreditation with you. I find that the most mediocre men can just say whatever the fuck they want, and people will just accept the position, accept the title that they have determined themselves to be. But a woman, she has to have MBA, PhD, all of these, you know, acronyms and whatnot after her name for people to even feel like there's legitimacy to what she's saying. And that was another part of the, you know, criticism when it came to everything that you would be saying. And I'm just like, but does her argument hold logic? I mean,
and that's the thing I was going to say. Titles doesn't make someone a leader.
It doesn't at all. It doesn't make you brilliant. It does. It has no
accolades in a title doesn't create someone's perception on something. It doesn't breed someone's results. You have many people, Oprah's one, Tyler Perry's another, who
that are
have
self-made,
no education whatsoever past high school, no collegiate education, who have done beyond well, okay, within their industries. And I said that to say that even if I had none of these 6 degrees that I have, none, 4 that are academic and 2 that are honorary doctorate degrees, I would still think and be shaped the way that I am. I would still change lives the way that I do. I would still feel the same way about broken homes and broken families. I would still stand on a mountaintop and advocate for the Black community. I would still be president of the biggest civil rights organization, NAACP, for Los Angeles, San Pedro, Wilmington, and Palos Verdes for 12 years. I will still have my own street, the NAACP Square, President Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, Founder Joe Gatlin, in my city, Los Angeles, as a result of the work I've done in the community and the lives I have changed. They didn't give me that because I had a title. They didn't give me that because I have all this educational accolades. They gave me that because I'm impactful, I'm influential, I'm changing lives, and I'm able to lead without force. This is why I don't have the need to be liked, because leadership isn't I'm manipulating you to like me so I can lead you. That's manipulation. That's narcissism. Leadership is I'm going to show you my results. And if you feel like my results are something that's conducive to where you want to be, you are more than welcome to join. And leadership is also the folks that I'm leading are not just followers. These folks are leaders as well. They're intelligent, they're genius. There's times where they do go in the forefront and they lead my pack. So this is not an arrogance of I'm leading, look at me. It's all of us are leading in some capacity. A real leader also knows how to fall back and follow when necessary. So again, all of those things came because of my impact of who I am and the lives that have been positively changed, not because I have it. There's a lot of people with titles. Folks are getting honorary doctorates fucking like candy at a candy store now.
They sure are.
Which I am against. I only received mine because I have an academic doctorate that I said, hey, no problem. I will go into an honorary doctorate. I had a doctorate title before I ever had honorary doctorate. So again, those things are Atlanta, the city, which shout out to AT, I love y'all, giving me my own Dr. Cheyenne Bryant Day, okay? On March 6th, I wouldn't have got that just because I'm Dr. Bryant. You I got that because I'm impactful, because I'm doing the work, and my results in my life speak for the work and the principles that I'm teaching and providing people every day. I want people, Melyssa, to have a great quality of life. That is a birthright. People don't believe in entitlement, but I do believe that when we were born, we are entitled to one thing. That is at least a great quality of life. That is at least a human right to be able to be in this space with resources and tools and principles that give you the fair, equitable chance to have some equality with the folks who are living the good fucking life.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm here to do, is to provide that.
Agreed. You are everywhere right now. Like, I swear, my suggested reels, 4 out of 5 of them are you. You come across my For You page, my timeline. Obviously, the algorithm, conspires with whatever it is that you find interesting. And I really love women empowerment, motivation, cats and dogs, comedians like that. Yeah, exactly. My co-host Daisy is sitting right on your lap. This is the most peaceful I have ever seen her.
See?
Usually she's jumping around, jumping up and down off of the sofas and whatnot. She curled up in your lap and did not move. Good
And
energy.
animals are divine.
They are
They
divine.
can't talk, so they have to go off what?
Energy. Yes, you have
knows.
great energy.
you.
So I was gonna say,
This is cathartic for her. She's in a session, y'all. She's in a session.
she's very calm right now, and that is a wonderful thing. So I was going to say, you are so booked and busy all day long, and I'm just wondering, are you still able to take clients on, as a life coach, like one-on-one?
Yeah.
Are you still able to do that?
I do, and I've been having clients for 17 years now, and so they are my first commitment. They are my first priority. They've been there, and to just stop being in private practice because a celebrity status has taken its own form. I'm on my talk show, Shoot Talks. I'm doing all these amazing podcasts like your amazing platform, Hot and Bothered. For me to just put them on the back burner, for one, there's a silent oath that we take as a therapist, as a coach, and that silent oath is to have our clients' best interests at the forefront and to make sure we're not causing impairments in their life. So as long as I can see them one-on-one, I will. It's funny because my sessions with my clients, I tell them this all the time. They give me all these props. Oh, you changed my life. Oh, you helped me. But I have to make them understand all the time, I learn so much from every single session. I'm not in session going, oh my God, here we go again.
I was going to
I'm in
ask.
session excited.
I was going to ask you, take us through a life coaching session. You can you can pick one out of your mind as to something that struck you recently, that you ended up learning from this particular client or the circumstances in which they presented. Take us through a life coaching session.
It was a session I had earlier today before coming on your show. A beautiful couple that I have, and they've been together for about 5 or 6 years. He's never cheated on her. She has cheated on him. And he had to travel for a business trip, and they share each other's locations. And she checks his location, and he was on the elevator, so the location said one spot. And he went from the elevator to his hotel room and was in the bed. And so the location showed that it changed. And she called him immediately and said, "Where are you?" And he goes, "I'm in the bed." And she goes, "Well, how did your location keep changing so much?" He's like, "Well, I went from the lobby to the elevator to the bed. So my location is following me." And she's telling me about this, and I asked him, "Does it bother you that she does these check-ins?" And he goes, "No, not really. I just know it's," and he joked, "It's a part of her craziness." And he, was being fluffy and playful with her.
That's interesting because it's projection.
Yeah.
She's the one that cheated, but she's the one being hyper vigilant about his whereabouts, and he seems to be, from what you're saying, chill.
So I checked in with her and I said, "Let me ask you a question. He's never cheated on you. So what is the narrative that goes on in your head about what is possible?" And she says that once the kids, grow up, he can leave me, or he's just here because I'm convenient. He's here for a season. He really doesn't want me. This may not work. I know that happy things don't last, and so this is going to have to come to an end at some point. And so she goes down this distorted thinking and her ruminating thoughts. And so I say, okay. And I say, well, let me ask you this. Do you think there'll ever be a time that the reassurance that he is continuously provided will allow you to be able to nest in that? I said, or do you think that you always have to check in for that reassurance every, so often? She goes, well, I think that I always have to check in no matter what. I said, okay. I said, so what that tells me is that you are in the wilderness, but you are creating your own wilderness, and that this man has created a promised land for you, that your limited thoughts, your distorted thinking, and your norm that you came into this relationship with is not allowing you to be in the promised land. I said, let me tell you a story about Moses. And she's listening. I said, he freed the Israelites from Egypt. They got to the Red Sea opened up. God was so gracious that he had them walk on dry land. So by the time they got to the other side of the Red Sea, there was no residue on their feet from their past. So they didn't even have the burden of the past. Then as the Israelites come into the Red Sea to obviously come get, the Egyptians come into the Red Sea to come back enslave the Israelites, he closes up the Red Sea on the Egyptians, showing the Israelites, I got you. I got you. I'm covering you. There's hedges around you. I got you to the Red Sea, and I got you on the other side. I said, but when they got there, they were experiencing the Stockholm syndrome of, wait, I'm here, and I would rather be with my abuser. I would rather be with where I was captive. I'd rather be in enslavement. Why? Yeah. Because their norm was the wilderness, not their norm of the environment they had just gotten to. Their mental norm was the wilderness. So no matter where Moses would have took them physically, right, or environmentally, their mind was still in captive. So God said, oh, no problem. I will let you have your free will. I'll give you manna, which is food, and I'll give you water. So you won't thirst or be hungry. But guess what? A journey that was meant for 11 days ended them in the wilderness for 40 years. So I explained to her, I said, but God is so beautiful. He still took them to the promised land. So I said, listen, what if I told you that you get to the promised land, which is you're happy, and because your mindset is that of the wilderness, that you are not able to enjoy what is already there. And so you are in your own way. And as I'm saying this, he's looking, because it's a virtual session, he's looking in the camera and he's going.
And because he's like, thank you for telling her
and
this.
He's like breathing like, shit. And I said to him, what does that look mean? He goes, well, I've been telling her this for a long time in my own words, but obviously my words don't hit like yours. And I look at her and I said, what exactly did I say? And she goes, you said everything right. And you're absolutely correct. And it is a wilderness in my mind. And there is complete security here and complete reassurance
here. She sounds like she needs her own therapy sessions.
Yeah. And I said, because you look at happiness as a season. You look at happiness as someplace that you visit as a vacation. So you take your sleeping bag, but you're waiting for the moment to sabotage it because in your wilderness, the promised land doesn't exist. So you don't have a residence in the promised land. You have a residence in the wilderness, and you go visit the promised land on vacation. And to you, that's all it's about. So what do? You create things in your relationship to fulfill your self-fulfilling prophecy, because we're all prophets here. And we all have our own self-narrative that we will fulfill. So you are sabotaging this relationship over and over again by saying, I want to jump ship, or saying this is not going to work for me. No, it's working. You're in the promised land. Your mindset is in the wilderness. So you are out of alignment. You can experience the environment that God has given you because you want to go back into enslavement because that's all you know. I want you to start to look at the promised land from a discovery lens. Not from it is not everlasting, not from it has to end. And I want you to no longer sleep in a sleeping bag. I want you to be present.
I like
want
that
you
analogy.
To see what it has in store for you. And he's just looking like, oh my God. So long story short, her homework was to create a happy promised land narrative and bring it to our next session so that we can use that narrative and we can compare it to her limited thinking and see where is it that she needs reprogramming. Because listen, what I've learned, Melyssa, is almost all the time we don't need a new environment. We don't need a new shaft or tool. What we need is a new mindset. We need a shift. And not to go biblical again, I'll go quick with this. You have Peter who was fishing. And he's fishing all night and all day. He was a fisherman, one of the top fishermen in the Bible. And Jesus comes onto his boat and he's like, hey, man, I see you having problems. And Peter's like, man, I ain't caught nothing all day, all night. Jesus says, throw your nets on the other side. Peter says, first of all, big dog, I got one net. And I've been here all night. Jesus said, this is your problem. You don't listen, you talk too much, which is most of us. And he says, I'm going to say it again. Throw your nets on the other side. Peter says, all right. I think Peter, like me, had an attitude like, all right, I'll do it. But I already said, I've been here all night and I'm the top fisherman. I know what I'm talking about. Peter takes his net and throws it on the other side of the boat. The net became nets. It was so many fish that it broke the nets. Hold on. Peter didn't get a new boat. He didn't get different nets. He didn't change locations. All he did was shift his perception, which means that we are equipped with everything we need. The only thing we don't do is what everyone seems to be afraid of, is to see it a different fucking way.
It's true.
And one last thing. Yeah. When Peter drove up to shore, Jesus cooked him a meal. Listen, y'all, imagine Jesus cooking you a meal and then looks at you and says, listen, you'll never have to fish again. I'll make you fishermen of men. All because he was obedient enough to shift his perception. Y'all looking for a new marriage. You're looking for a new job. You're looking for, I'm gonna go there, a new BBL. All you have to do is shift your perception.
That is a major.
Reshape your marriage.
It's a very.
Work the fuck out. Hold on. Love yourself. Learn how to love yourself in any form you're in. Shift your perception about you and prophesize over your life, because it's called self-fulfilling prophecy, because your prophecy will self-fulfill. So whatever you want to fulfill is what you should be prophesizing. I should never tell myself I'm not deserving of an award. Who better than me to get this award? Who better than Melyssa to get this award? Does that mean I'm arrogant? No. It means I know the God in me. I know what he created, and I know the power of my words. And lastly, the Bible tells us, think only on these thoughts that are positive, praiseworthy, and prosperous. Because God is saying, listen, Melyssa, listen, Doc, listen, y'all. Life cherry picks your thoughts. It cherry picks it. So you put all your thoughts in a bowl like fruit. And when life picks up the apricot that you're allergic to or that you don't like, you go, that's not what I wanted. But you put it in the bowl by thinking, because what he's saying is that every thought, every word is a prayer. So if you're thinking and praying things to me all day long, and God cherry picked something that you put in this bowl that you didn't like, hold on, you gonna gaslight me? You put it in here. All I did was pick from your free will that's in the bowl. And I'm giving you principles that tell you how to think, how to be. Shift your perception, Melyssa. You don't need a new boat, but you want to go buy a yacht. This little sailboat you got to get you everything you need, but you're thinking you need a bigger boat. You're thinking you need a new marriage. I tell my clients all the time, you don't need a different partner. We can reshape this thing. You don't need a different sex partner. You don't need to cheat. We can reprogram, reshape this. Yeah. Y'all done spent 20 years. Let's reshape it. Now, if there's infidelity, that's a whole different conversation. Yes. But if we're talking about in-house shit, we could reshape this. Yeah. We don't have to dissolve everything. And we are a real dissolve, flee, run, something new culture, when it's like you run away from old just to run into the new that gives you the same experience, because you need to shift your perception no matter where you go.
We value individualism so much as a part of Western culture. And I think that we're starting to see how much of a disservice it started to do to us. We treat things as being extraordinarily disposable. We treat people and unions that we've created, friendships, marriages, as being completely disposable. And part of that, I think, is because we have embraced being individuals past the point of which it was ever supposed to be. One of the things that, in therapy I have experienced is exactly what you're talking about, just reframing thoughts and also challenging long-held beliefs. Yeah. Thinking about, if you think about something, a belief that you have, and it is, rock solid, it's in the sediment, but then you actually thought to yourself, where did it come from? And it could have come from a place of trauma. It could have come from a place of, developed when, a thought that developed when you were still mentally underdeveloped. I think that a lot of people would benefit from being taught how to reframe their thinking, but a lot of people don't even have the concept of what that would take. That is an enormous amount of work to just shift your head. It's an enormous amount of work.
Because they have no sense of self. People are sitting in the dark saying, I love it here. You know why they love it there? Because you don't have to take inventory of your shit. Turn the lights on. You want a sense of self? Turn the lights on. look and see what's going on in the darkness. You know, you'll learn that everything in there, one, is you. So there's nothing to fear because you put it there. And if you put it there, guess what? You can remove it. But we got to be able to turn the lights on, take an inventory of self. Okay, this is what we got going on. Keep the things that serve us, rid the things that don't, and start to reprogram and create a narrative that fits who and where you want to be.
What's your thoughts on shadow work?
I think it's good. I think that this is my thing. I think
Well, first I want to give an explanation to people who might not be aware of shadow work, and how I believe or understand it to be. The definition of it is there's parts of us that we try very hard to hide from the world. And the reason why we hide these parts of ourselves is because they are rooted in our perception of shame. We feel like these are the ugly parts of us. Nobody can see this. And actually, they are not ugly. They're just a part of the mosaic of who you are. And it's almost like a yin and yang, sort of situation.
Yeah.
It took me a long time. I literally worked with like a shadow work expert to understand my shadow self and to understand what I considered to be, I guess, just too ugly or unattractive for the world to see. And once I removed those labels, that is where I feel like I had the biggest breakthrough in my development of self-awareness.
But I want to ask you this. What were you telling yourself that if the world's seen this, then what would the world do or think when it comes to you? What was that narrative?
Well, my situation is I introduced myself to the world by way of being a music video model, a silent, mini movie star. So people just saw my looks. And I was going to ask you a question about pretty privilege because you walked through the door. I was like, holy shit, you've seen her on TV. She's stunning. Like, she's beautiful on camera. She's stunning in person. So I definitely wanted to ask you a question about pretty privilege and how many difficulties you've had to experience to where people just were just stopped by your looks, and you're just like, hello, I have a lot to say. But I introduced myself to the world, and the world processed me as being beautiful. When I tried to show the world that I had other, dimensions to my personality,
they weren't receptive to it.
They were not receptive to it at all. I mean, it's only now that people are like, what surprises me most about Melyssa is her level of intelligence. I'm turning 49 in November. I've been in this business for over 25 years.
Wait a minute. And this, y'all don't see 49 anywhere here. Don't play with me.
Thank you.
No way.
Yes.
No way. Not like that. But now I see why they get caught up on the looks, girl.
I mean,
yes,
thank
you're
you.
gorgeous.
Thank you. But it's taken a really long time for people to see that side of me. And so I guess because I existed and lived in the male gaze for so long and didn't know it, wasn't aware of it, but it kind of validated.
Yeah, you're just in your career, in your field, doing you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I realized that there was certain things that the messy parts of me that I couldn't show because men wouldn't find them attractive. And that was my primary audience. And that was my bread and butter.
But they created, created your perception of yourself.
Absolutely. And
then you clothe yourself with that.
And I was so controlled by public perception and criticism that the levels of severe depression and sometimes suicidal ideation where I don't know how I'm still here.
Sorry to hear that. First of all, sorry to
God.
hear that. Thank you for being bold enough to share it.
Thank you.
Because there's so many men and women who are going to watch this who can relate. And you don't know whose life you're going to save by them saying, me too.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about the development of self-awareness and understanding that those ugly, messy parts are really actually incredibly beautiful because they're the most relatable parts.
And that's what shadow work helps you see.
Yes, and they're the most relatable parts of me. So now I broadcast them to the world. Nothing about my journey makes me feel shame at all, because I know that there is going to be somebody that relates to what I'm saying, and it's going to make them feel, it's going to allow them to exhale and feel a sense of relief that their problems are not unique, or that they're strange, or that they're unlovable or whatever the case is. I feel like that is extraordinarily important. My level of candidness, that's what I do. So I have such an appreciation for what it is that you do. But going back to the whole shadow work thing, so long-winded description as to what it was.
But I want to say something to honor you in self-disclosing, because what you're doing is you're showing people your cross. And many of us have the same cross. We don't know how to carry it. So when you self-disclose and you give your testimony, you're pretty much being a disciple. And you're going, this is my cross. You're allowing people to say, I have the same cross. And you're saying, but this is how I carried it. And they're going, now I know how to carry it. See, that's life-changing. That's life-saving. People identifying their cross in you. And that's why I say I don't talk to a race or a gender. I talk to pain. I talk to trauma. I talk to hope. I talk to people who have dreams. I talk to people who were lost. I talk to people who are trying to find themselves. Because no matter what race or gender we are, or preference we have, we all have those things that we can identify with. And so again, I honor you for showing people your cross, and that's why I stand on my shit, and I am very forward with, no, this is my trauma, or this is what I experienced, because I am using myself, as the Bible says, as a living sacrifice to say, I have a cross, many of them. This is how I've carried it. I have been crucified a lot by it, and I have resurrected many fucking times. And so because of that, I want to show you how to carry yours. We are all little Jesus Christs, literally. And Jesus carried his own cross, and he had disciples that carried theirs with him. But when it was time for crucifixion, he had to do it alone. The work is that.
The work, you do it alone, and it is really...
And it will resurrect you.
It will.
It will free you. But you got to have people like you. You got to have people like me who will say, I stand on my shit so you can see my crown. I went through adversity so that I can show you how to go through it. I came through on the other side so that I can show you that it's possible. But you got to have the willingness to do the work, because I can show you all this, but I can't do the work for you.
That's absolutely true. We're seeing a resurrection in real time by watching the Diddy trial and Cassie's testimony. And the discourse online has been unnerving. I have been, my flabbers have been gasted. I have been shocked. I have been appalled. There's a hard line in the sand as to where you stand when it comes to this case and Cassie's testimony. You either believe that she was completely complicit, she absolutely wanted this, she's a gold digging, whatever you want to call her, she's all that. Or she is a survivor. She was a victim and she is a survivor, and she is doing what every single victim and survivor of this level of abuse would love to do and feels like they cannot do. So she's speaking for so many of them.
And I want to throw in a third perspective.
Please do.
Because I feel like those two can coexist. I feel like a woman can get into a relationship with the end result in mind, with it being money or a promise that he said he would do for her. I don't care if it's house, money, taking care of her kids, or a record deal, whatever it might have been. I'm not just saying Cassie, only any woman, and then get in too deep over her head. I think that she can go into it thinking, oh, this relationship's gonna breed this, but now I'm in here getting my ass whipped. Now I'm being abused. Now I'm being raped. Hold on. So I feel like they both can coexist, and that's why we have such split opinions, because people tend to think they have to take one end of it. What if it's both? What if this young woman said, I came in and I did fall in love, and I was made promises. Promises weren't kept, but I still stayed in love. I end up abused. So I end up battered, right? And then I end up with the Stockholm syndrome we just talked about. Now I'm thinking that my abuser loves me, and this is the norm, because we don't know. I said that earlier. It's easy to ask somebody, why didn't you leave, when we don't know where they fucking came from. If all they know is being preyed on, if all they know is abuse, if all they know is, being taken advantage of, that is their residence. That is their home. So where in the fuck do you want them to go from there? Where do you want her to go? She has nowhere else to go. Create it for her. she still won't know how to navigate there. Does it make it okay, even if she stayed, for someone to, I don't care if you stay for 30 years. Abuse is abuse. I don't care if you say, yes, you can rape me, but I'm saying no. Sexual abuse is still sexual abuse. It still impacts.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the reason why. It's the fact that it still is abuse.
I think a lot of people had difficulty with the idea of captivity. I think that people have this idea, this very black and white idea as to what captivity looks like. It's physical. It's physical. Somebody is preventing you from going anywhere. They harm you. They tell you things. They put their hands on you, and they physically restrain you. And that is their only definition of captivity. And that's the reason why so many sexual assaults and rapes go unreported or unprosecuted, because people want the perfect victim. And very rarely is there a perfect victim. And you talked earlier about mental captivity.
Yeah.
That was something that I was trying to teach people about. You have kidnapped victims. Kidnapped victims where they've spent enough time with their captor that he can let them go to the store. And nobody's around, and they will come back. And people can't make sense of that. And I want people to understand how somebody can become imprisoned psychologically.
It's institutionalization in a relationship. That's what it is. It is exactly, let's go deeper. You have daughters who have been sleeping with, let me say it better. You have fathers who have been raping and sexually abusing their daughters from the age of, let's say, 14 to 22. I had a real client like this. She hit, I think, mid-20s, and she was on her way to get married. The father had a problem with it. Not because she was getting married, but because
their relationship was going to stop. And I use that term.
She would no longer be willing to be intimate with him. I say willing only because he had psychologically programmed this young girl from the age of 14 to mid-20s to feel like sleeping with her father was no longer sexual abuse. It was now her norm. Now in session, of course, she's saying, I know it's wrong, but she's going back, consenting, voluntarily having sex with her father as an adult woman now. She doesn't even live in the home with him anymore. You're talking about deep-rooted programming that this young woman has. For me, as her coach or therapist, when I was a marriage family child therapist, to write her off and say, you want it. You're disgusting. It's incest. No, that's sexual fucking abuse. That's deep programming. That father is sick. This girl is now sick too, because she has been captive and programmed and manipulated in his sickness to where she doesn't even know how to decipher the difference between being intimate with your father and now your husband. And the crazy part is the husband doesn't know about the sexual engagement that's going on between her father. But she's afraid, keyword afraid, because stopping the sexual relationship with her father also means no relationship with him. Also means possible abuse. Also means the possibility that her husband finds out. And so do you see all of the burden that may seem small to the people who are not in it? But being in something and carrying a burden is different than watching it and saying what you wouldn't do. And not only have a different resource.
And not only that, you can speak to this if I'm correct, that a certain amount of arrested development has kicked in. If I've read somewhere that your development arrests at the inception of the trauma. So she is still, as a 22-year-old woman, she's still 14 in her head. Hello. Oh my God. It gives me chills. That story is horrific. It's horrific because she's going to need lifelong therapy.
Forever
and ever and ever.
Forever.
And God, willing, her husband, if he ever finds out, he still loves her
we're
through
working
that.
on her having this conversation with her husband, because I believe he will support her in that. And I also expressed to her that it is a vulnerable space that I believe will bring them closer. And I believe that he will be a huge part of helping her detach and reprogram from this norm. We can't heal a lie. We can only heal the truth. And as she lives in this lie and this duality of the truth over here with her father, a lie with her husband, she gets hit by both sides. So we're working on it, and I feel like she's getting closer to doing that. She's dealing with a lot of shame, which is what sexual abuse or abuse victims deal with. It's not even guilt. Guilt and shame are two different things.
They are.
Shame
They're
is I'm a
cousins.
horrible person. They're cousins. Shame is I'm a horrible person. Guilt is, damn, I did something wrong that I know I can atone from. But when you are abused in any form, you start to believe and clothe yourself with, I am really not a good human. I am really a horrible person, because the abuse that you feel starts to overtake, and you start to embody that as a human, male or female.
Yeah.
And so now when you're talking about abuse sessions, we're having to peel back layers and layers and layers before we even get to the act of the abuse or the emotional abuse that took in place. The trauma is the last thing we start to process through. We're talking about you as a person. How do you see yourself? How do we unshape that? How do we reprogram that? How do we peel back those layers? Let's talk about the suicidal ideations that you're having as a result of it. Let's talk about the symptoms you're experiencing. I mean, we haven't even got to the trauma or the act of it. So these are layers that people who've never experienced it, or they're not in the mental health field as a professional to provide help on it, don't know until you're in it. It's not an easy fix of, Melyssa, oh, he hit you, go.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have nowhere to go.
It's true.
They don't have nowhere to go.
It's true. I remember thinking to myself, you know, wherever you go, there you are. I remember being in places that were physical paradises and feeling trapped inside my head.
Because there you are.
Wherever you go, there you are. And I feel like there's a book that's called Wherever You Go, There You Are. And I feel like that is a really excellent starting point for a lot of people if they understood this can be paradise or it can be prison.
Period.
You can be in just a box of a room and you're free here. Or you can be on a beach in Bali and you are imprisoned in your brain. Our brains are so powerful and they really work for or against us. I'm at the point in my life where my brain works for me.
Come on.
I have lived decades where my brain worked against me, where that negative narrative controlled every aspect of how I thought about myself. The shame that I felt, the guilt that I felt for whatever reasons, embarrassment, humiliation, fear, and or unworthiness was the umbrella, and everything fell underneath it. It took so much deprogramming to get to the healthy place where I am now, and still have a therapist and love her to death, and I'm never letting go of her because she's freaking amazing, and we have a plan of action.
I love that.
You know, every time we finish somewhere, then we're like, all right, let's go on to this. And it's the healthiest that I've ever been. So like, it really is actually like a point of encouragement. That is what I would want for a lot of people too. So I see and acknowledge that is what you do. And you truly feel rewarded when you put people on the right path.
That's the real payment. It's not the monetary payment. It's the breakthroughs. It's the changes. It's the, Doc, our marriage is different. It's better. It's, Doc, my suicidal ideations are gone. Doc, I'm off my medication. Or, you know, I've reprogrammed. I see myself different. You know, just the little texts that come through from time to time that says, I did it. I created it. I feel better. I'm doing better. I can't wait for next session. I always tell my clients after session, hey, love you. Yeah. The love you twos. Those things are the rewards, and those things are why I do what I do. But you said something so good, Melyssa. You said that you can be in a room, pretty much paradise, and your mind is still in prison and it's not allowing you to be in that environment. Well, that's exactly what trauma does to folks at a young age. Kids, when trauma is so deep and so heavy, they go into their beautiful creative mind and they create this fairy tale bubble that they live in. so that they don't have to face the reality of how hard and harsh and dark the reality is. What happens is they grow up to be adults like us, and they're still in that bubble. And
How does that manifest in terms of behavior?
it shows up where, I love that you said it, they have this fairy tale ideology.
Cinderella complex?
Cinderella complex, but it's not meant to demise anyone who can't reach their standards. It's really has always been built to protect them. It's their defense mechanism. And anytime someone gets too close to where that bubble might burst, guess what they do? They sabotage, right? They have avoidant behavior. It's called, avoidant attachment. If you get too close, I'm out of here.
That was me.
Right. And it's
Hardcore.
not because I don't want to be loved or that I don't love you. I got this bubble. If you shift it or change it, guess what? I may see the reality that I would have feared 20, 30 years ago. That doesn't even exist today. So we are in bubbles protecting us from the promised land, from that paradise, from being out of the prison. As adults, we are imprisoning ourselves because that shift in perception I talked about earlier with Peter on the boat is shifting out of our bubble that was meant to protect us. We have to remember as well is that the idea is to get to a place of trusting ourselves so much, because it's not about trusting people. It's about trusting ourselves. So I don't have to trust you. I got to trust me to do a couple of things. Know if I'm choosing you, being the right person that's conducive for me, and knowing that I trust myself to pivot in case this thing goes in a way that's not safe for me. I don't need to trust you to do anything. I need to trust you to be yourself. And I come in and say, okay, I can trust that I know how to navigate this and pivot if I need to. And so I have to come out of my defensive bubble in order to experience you. Otherwise, guess who I'm experiencing in my bubble? Me. And guess what? That, to your question, that develops a narcissistic person. And this is where narcissism gets weird, because you got folks who are really narcissistic with ill intent. Then you got folks who've been in their protective bubble for so long that they become all about me in my bubble because the last time
is there a difference between, self-absorption as like a sense of protection and narcissism? I feel like there is a heavy distinction between the two.
Yes, but if we self-absorb for so long, then we become an island where everything on the island that we vegetate is us, 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 and us. We lose our social skills. Now we don't know how to be in a relation, not just romantically, with anyone. Because if Melyssa doesn't bend or can't be conducive to this island, then guess what? You can't come on my island, and I won't come off mine. So now we're in a narcissistic relationship that will never work, right? It's about communing. It's about building up and doing the work to where you are safe within yourself and you are able to be in the place that we all want to reach, which is called secure attachment. And I can attach to you because I'm secure within myself, not because I'm codependent on you keeping and reassuring my security. No, I'm solid. I'm okay, Melyssa. And guess what? You can make mistakes. I got grace. Because I don't personalize it. And I don't set boundaries with you. Boundaries are for me. I set boundaries within myself that say, when Melyssa does this, the boundary is I'm gonna have a conversation with her. The boundary is I'll touch and go. I'll take her in dosage, or I know how to pivot. I'm the one that has to have boundaries as to how this relationship is gonna be conducively healthy for me. Because if I depend on you to do it, I'm being codependent. We are in our trauma. We are trauma responding. Our abandonment is choosing for us. Our abandonment is present and inflamed. And it says, I need to be needed. I need someone to need me. Do you want my mouthpiece, my conversation, my intellect, my dominance, my submission, my softness? Do you want me? We have a group of Black men who have mommy issues. And they grow up to date us, and we end up being the issue. And if you don't hit that list, then that person doesn't have value. If y'all ladies don't take anything from this episode, you have to.
Thank you for tuning into Hot and Bothered with Melyssa Ford. Please rate, subscribe, and comment, and share wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
This season of Hot and Bothered with Melyssa Ford is hosted, written, and executive produced by me for Forged Path Productions. This episode was written and produced by Sebastian Godin. Filming and editing of this episode is done by GVI Films and executive produced by Rachel DeSalvo.